Hey there, everybody. Joining me today is Maxwell Rodgers, good friend of mine. I've actually known him for a couple of years now, and he's been a pretty solid stand-up guy. I called him out here basically to talk about some of his experiences on Second Life as well as VRChat, and how these experiences may have shifted or changed people over a span of time. But for right now, I'd like to, I'd like for him to take it away, basically introduce himself to the audience. So, Maxwell, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Maxwell Rodgers, the Red Fox. I've been making mesh for over a decade. I've been perfecting this for that long as well, unfortunately, and I make basically anything.
Yeah, in the time I've known him, Maxwell has been very passionate on this particular character. Your OC, if I remember correctly, Maxwell Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his avatars are some variation of this, although he has sort of branched off, and I've seen him wear kobolds, and I believe there was, two kobolds, one animatronic or cybernetic, I should say, and the other more of the fleshy variety. But he's very passionate about his work. He takes a lot of pride in his Blender and Unity work, and it really comes to show in some of the models. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So I'll go ahead and grab the camera. Would you like to have a seat over there?
Sure.
All right, after you, sir. So in the time that you played Second Life, going into VRChat, that you must have known a wide variety of people over a span of years.
Many, yeah.
I guess a basic question I have is, let's start off with your personal experiences in Second Life. You got any stories to tell?
I ran an entire sim, which is, I guess you can consider it here like a world. Although you're constrained to what you can have in the world. And that's kind of rare in Second Life because it actually costs real life money to run said world. I've run quite a few clubs in my time, just hangout places. Again, every piece of land costs money, and I own land. I've been a part of very big groups and affiliations and creator groups, and just massive, and made stuff here and there. I made anything, sound files, textures that people even still use today. Kind of gives me a kick when I still hear some of the sound files I've made in some other people's product, because things you have for your avatar, you attach them. You don't just make a whole avatar. You can grab an attachment, and it's a whole different world compared to VRChat. And a lot of people don't know that.
Oh, no. We almost have it too easy compared to, from what you've been telling. Well, the stories I've heard about Second Life, there was its own economy, and everything was driven by real-life money.
It is, yes. Everything. You have land barons that own massive amounts of land that literally can that they actually make money, like thousands of dollars a day off of people renting their virtual land. It's massive.
Very interesting. We talked about this in the past. It's been a little bit of a minute. I guess you have all this going on, people, forming friendships in the virtual world before VRChat was a thing. I guess let's focus on some of your interpersonal relationships with people. How did Second Life change them over the years? Better, worse, maybe somewhere in between? Certain people get better, certain people get worse.
The thing to remember is any virtual environment that has no rules, really you can, and there's no actual
consequences.
individual repercussions, right? There's no consequences to you. There's consequences to your character, but you can just make a new account the next minute. So you can get banned from the entire Second Life grid and just make a new account and be on there again and rebuy the stuff you had. Or people that constantly get banned by breaking the rules would actually copy their items because they would usually make them, buy back the avatar they were using, and then just transfer the stuff to their new account. They would give it out to friends, and then the friends would then give it back to them. Those were called ban boxes. And I mean, when you have that kind of freedom, you really get the scum of the earth in some parts. You also get some great people that look on the positive side of it. There was wonderful communities on there. There really was. I mean, even to the point where even today, Linden Labs, the owners of Second Life, have still kept them up, even though the original people paying for it are long gone. Just because of how beautiful they were and how many people, went through that place.
Mm-hmm.
So it tends to bring out the worst and best in most people, and sadly, that's just what happens.
Unfortunately, I'm no stranger to drama, and I've heard stories about there being loads of drama, especially among furries on the Second Life scene.
Yeah, it's a literal breeding ground for drama. The thing is, and what I've noticed is, the more and more closer someone gets to their OC, the more closer to what they imagined it as, the more they either tilt to one of those sides. Either they become really nice and helpful, or they're becoming really sadistic and stuck up, and it just dives out.
So there's definitely a component of ego here, as in someone's ego will get more and more inflated in some cases.
Yeah, and the more attuned they are to their character, they're once people tend to play one character in the old days, everyone would play one character, and if those people are still around, and they usually are, the more perfected they are to their character, the more ego it gives them. The more confidence they have, the more this is me, this is what and who I am to the letter. Just like with my avatar. I've spent so long working on this. Being any other character than this just feels weird. It's like putting on a mask. Oddly enough, wearing this doesn't feel like a mask.
You've had it for so long that it's become part of your identity here online.
It has, yeah. And that's what happens with others. It's just how you use it. Some people use it literally as a mask, or some people use it to express themselves. I use this just to change my appearance. I don't change who I am from real life to here. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use it as oh, I'm a dragon, so I'm big and mean, and I can be mean, and it's because I'm a dragon. I mean, no. I mean,
that's strange logic
bad.
Right there. That's
you would say it's strange, but that is the most popular logic on SL. It's I can do this because I own a sim. It's my sim and it's my rules, and respectively it is. But at the same time, I mean, where's your moral compass? It's do you want to ban people? I guess I'll just say recently there's been a whole ban wave of anyone that's too short.
what?
I've been short. Yeah. There's reasons behind it, and I won't go into it, but it's if you're a short avatar, you're underage.
Oh.
I'm
that's very
I'm a
strange
fox.
rationale.
I go for it is. And granted, the first thing I think when I see a short person is, hey, are they a midget? I mean, it's not the first thing that comes to my head. I mean, I don't know, but I've been 4.5 feet tall in Second Life for 8 years now, since I kind of rechanged my shape, and I've been banned from places without even saying anything. They just ban me. There's things you can do. You can force teleport someone, just like here, you can with the modded client, you can force them back to their home. it's essentially the same thing as Second Life. It's part of the system. So you can eject trolls or people that are trying to attack your sim. You can just kick them out and send them home. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very, very strange when people get that kind of mentality going.
I would say, based on what you've told me, some people, I don't know, it's like there's so many layers to this, and when I first started like conceptualizing these interview sessions I wanted to have with particular people, there's layers to all this because we don't know their real life, like what they're like in real life. We only assume based on the sound of their voice and how they act online that is some component of them. And I'll tell you, Max, I've met some people from VRChat in real life, and a couple of them, they act no different here than they do in real life. Others, it's like night and day, Beauty and the Beast. That all being stated, I guess from what you've said, the component of ego, this builds over maybe a span of years, what you're describing. That
it can, yeah.
And you told me stories about how like some people, they're kind of quiet, shy, maybe a little mousy, like in the early days.
Oh, yeah.
And then they suddenly become... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, you're right. Most people, when they first learn about Second Life or VRChat, will start very small, very quiet, keeping, just to themselves or hanging out with friends. And the more and more they learn about how the system works, just like with any system, if there's a way to abuse it, eventually people will figure out how and then abuse it. And again, with Second Life, there's no limits to how far you can abuse it. There's barely any actual Second Life admins anymore on Second Life. There's just people who run the Sims, and they're the ones that make the rules. But if you're, I guess to quote a bad thing, if you give them a little, help, if you know what I mean, they can look the other way, because apparently that's all it takes. And it's just amazing,
Help.
Yeah. You'd be surprised that, honestly, sadly, that's all Second Life is what it's used for. I would say at least 60% of the time
Is meeting with people to enjoy
promiscuous things. Yeah.
Get
on to get off.
I mean, I know some other people that still play Second Life to this day, and it's like I've seen screenshots, I've seen videos, and it's like you go to these. Me personally, I prefer VRChat because you can be anywhere you want to be. You don't have to just go to a nightclub all the time. But that's where the people go, because the player count's so small now, and dwindling, and certain people they don't like strangers. But anyway, not to get too off topic, what it sounds to me like is, in the absence of real problems, maybe people have been, I don't know, splitting hairs. If they're just gonna kick people out for being short, with the rationale. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's mostly because it's that power feeling. Most people on Second Life, and I don't want to just blanket statement here, but most people on Second Life don't have the best real life.
No.
Hence the reason why they invest so much into Second Life. So, I mean, if you are paying for a piece of land that you control, and people come there daily, in the by 10s, 20s a day, new people, right? So you keep accumulating people on a big list. You start seeing, and people keep coming. You start to realize, wow, I have one cool place for people to hang out. And then that starts going to your head. It doesn't matter who you are. That will start going to your head, because you're like, well, I don't like the way they look. They're too short, or they're not my type. It's like, just remove them. And it's like, or you're wearing a certain type of avatar, you can't be here now.
Jeez.
And like, to give you a prime example, I was at a sim just hanging out, sitting next to an admin.
Yeah.
I walked away from that admin just to go AFK. So I just walked away, sat down. The admin didn't say anything to me about my height or anything. Matter of fact, they were the same height. I walk away, like the other side of the sim, the other side of the area, and then another guy comes in. Now, he's not an admin, but he's a donator, so he's like, you know, like a Patreon guy, basically. And so he has the same powers as an admin. And same influence, because he says, I paid for it, you have to get out. I'm like, what?
Jesus.
Hi, hello, would you like to say hello first? And I'm like, why do I have to leave? I was just next to an admin. And the guy's like, yeah, I pay for this place, you're too short, you gotta get out. And I'm like, oh, no.
That's so weird.
I left, respectively. I'm like, you know what, dude, I ain't dealing with this. There's so many places I can go. I left. Came back 2 weeks later. Saw that admin again. And I walked up to them nicely and I said, I didn't know. And I was kind of pissed off still. I'm like, you know what? I didn't know you guys banned short avatars. And she was like, we don't do that. What are you talking about?
Oh.
I'm like, oh, this guy came next to me and was like, you know, I didn't remember his name at that time. And I'm like, this guy just said he pays for this place. He donated in and he doesn't want short avatars here. And he's not an admin.
You met the resident a-hole.
We have like 3 admins. Yeah, we have 3 admins, and all of them don't care what your height is. And she stood up. She was sitting down at the time. She stood up, and she was like actually shorter than me by like about 4 inches. She's like, and I don't think I would be allowed here. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. And I'm like, fair enough. I'm like, I'm sorry. I just had a guy like literally verbally assault me and kick me out of the sim, threatened to ban me too. And so luckily that's been quarreled. You know, if some sims in some places do actually keep up with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know.
So we've like exposed what the hangouts are like, and you've shared a little bit about. Mm-hmm. Do you have any like personal experiences with people? Maybe they change over a span of time, like they assume like a different personality and a different identity.
They do, and that's with that whole freedom thing with no consequences. There's literally no consequences. You can just block someone and they don't exist. And it's just, people do change. And it's almost like their true nature comes out in a way. Because you could just be chilling in a club, talking to someone, just, randomly say hi, and they could just ignore you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so they don't want to talk, And then you can have another person that, says, why the fuck you IM me? Sorry. And it's just like, it's just like, what? Because you're there, There's a thing for, okay, so when you move your camera around because it's like a third person thing, so you can see other things. You move your camera by holding Alt. When you focus onto something, there's this little crosshair that can come up. It's a setting that you can turn on, but you have to turn that setting on. So remember this. So I'll cam on to someone to look at them, just to see their avatar. Like, oh, that's a cool avatar. You got cool sparkles or whatever. Then they'll IM me and be like, you're camming me? What's your problem? I'm like, what? Stop camming me. I'm like,
what's illegal look?
What?
You can't just enjoy
I'm
all
like,
the work that you put in this thing? All the money?
Yeah, and it's like, what? First of all, you turn that on. Okay, if you don't want to see people camming, you leave it off. Jesus. You had to turn that on to see people camming on you. And then there was another one, and then, it's just people just their entire attitudes. It's like legitly change. It's weird.
So
it's that no consequence thing.
Oh no, I totally get that, but I'm just more curious about how about like friends? Did you have anybody that was, I would say, they maybe joined you on Second Life in the early days, right when you were getting started out, or like maybe a little after, old timers. And are you still friends with a lot of your Second Life friends, or?
A lot of them have moved on. They've either, because a lot of my friends were furries back then, and we hung out, did things together. We had a group and stuff, and we all did stuff. The smart ones moved on. And when I say smart, I mean the ones that actually wanted to advance themselves in life.
I mean, you seem to be doing all right for yourself.
I mean, yeah. And it's because I balance the two, real life and the virtual life. And some people don't. And it's sad, but yeah, and it just happens. I'm happy for them. One of my friends actually moved on, and he started going to, like get a fursuit and go to fur cons and stuff. And I'm like, that's cool, dude. You're doing that kind of stuff. And he came back like 4 years later, and I saw him in a club randomly, and he didn't even remember me, first of all. Oh, and second, I was like, yeah, I was like, he was with a girl that was like that girl, the one you stay away from. And he was the beta in the situation. If he was,
yeah,
he wasn't the one in charge. He wasn't wearing the pants. She was. I type when I don't use mic on Second Life. I just don't. I had it on at the time though. I was, so I can hear other people talk.
Right.
And people will talk, and I said something. I'm like, hey, I missed you, man. How you been? And then she just went off on me. It was like, who's this dude? Who he's talking to, huh? All on mic, And I'm like, what? Oh, he's too scared to talk on mic? And she's just going like off the handle. And I'm like, what?
What was this, Snooki?
And he's what it was like, yeah. and he was just laughing along with her, like he was her hype man. Yeah, you get him. Go girl, you know what I mean. And I'm like, what the and I was just dumbstruck, and I didn't type anything, and she kept going and like, yes, he ain't got nothing to say, that stupid idiot over there. Of course, he used much more colorful language, but I'm like, why am I getting viciously attacked by someone I don't even know? I wasn't even talking to her. And I'm like, he made the biggest mistake ever. He came back. You don't do that. You don't come back to Second Life. Once you leave, that's it. Thank you. You've done a good job. Goodbye.
Once you
paid your dues. You did your thing. The problem is yeah, well, because Second Life can give you Stockholm Syndrome, and that's bad. And people don't realize that. And they get confused. And they're like, well, why can't you leave, Max? I'm like, because I put too much time into it. I literally put hundreds of dollars into Second Life. I have no wish to leave.
I feel the same way with freaking VR. Spent all this money on a VR headset.
No, I grew up with it. I literally grew up with Second Life. So I met my boyfriend on Second Life, perfectly honest. So I have a very deep connection to it, and thank you. I mean,
no, it's hard to find true love out there. I don't judge. I'm glad that you found it.
No, it is. Trust me.
Well, Second Life, I should say.
Yeah, well, we met on Second Life, and then we started actually talking, and then we moved to Skype, and big long story, but yeah, I was thinking, but there's been other stories of people that, I can have to go on a tangent, but there are people that have met someone on Second Life, actually drove to them, and found out they're the opposite of their SL self. And that happened to my friend, and that was just painful. I felt so bad. And he basically gave up on love almost at that point. He's like, I'm done. I'll stay single to the day I die. I'm not going through that again.
Jesus.
He was just so personally hurt. Because you pour emotions onto these things. And the problem is people don't realize it's a virtual world.
Yeah.
Most people sadly treat others like NPCs. They don't treat them like real people. And
we talked about this.
That's one of the biggest problems in any virtual environment, is people treat other people like they do a Skyrim NPC. What does anyone do to a Skyrim NPC? Find the biggest spell and burn them to death. That's what happens. And people just fail to realize that. And understandably, it just feels so real. It really does. Even on Second Life, that's not 3D. You're VR. And that's another thing too, is people pour their emotions onto it. And then they get upset because they're defending their emotions. And then eventually they just get battle hardened and then just want to screw everyone over because they've got hurting too bad. And that's where they kind of also fall off the deep end. Which has happened numerous times, too many times to count.
We've seen a couple cases recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple theories about all this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know these people in real life. I can only assume based on what people tell me and what I can imply based on how they act here. But some people, they just wantonly share that they don't really have any real life problems. They don't have a mortgage to deal with. They don't have bills to pay. They don't have student debt to pay. They don't have their responsibilities in some cases are taken care of by somebody else, be it their parents, guardians, or caregivers, or family. So, in the absence of these problems, they become complacent in whatever escape from reality they find, be it Second Life historically or VRChat now. And it, as they become more and more immersed, they don't have to leave the game. They can just stay here for as long as they want. Hours upon hours, entire days sometimes. Mm-hmm. That can't be good for you.
No, it can't, and I'm actually living proof of that. Long ago, I would say 12 years ago, maybe 10, 8 years, a while ago, about a decade, I would say that I fell into the rabbit hole, essentially.
The rabbit hole, huh?
I had real life obligations. I had real life things that pertain to my actual well-being and health, and I gave them all up to be on Second Life. I'm in East Coast time. Second Life runs on West Coast time because their servers are in California. I changed all my clocks to West Coast time. I changed everything I did to West Coast time. Would stay up days at a time.
You were addicted.
I was literally addicted to it. I was playing with fire and did not care how burnt I got. I went into the forest of the fire and enjoyed every second of it. Reality finally kicked in, thankfully, and kicked me so hard. I came out with 8th degree burns and still actually have those scars today. I always touch Second Life or any virtual environment with kid gloves because I always know it can happen, One thing I've noticed and what people don't understand is that if you don't have something in real life concrete to hold you, and you can literally lose yourself in these worlds. And some people just don't care. And to your point, yes, actually, I would say, and I am going to say this, 80%, in my opinion, 80% of the people on these worlds don't have to worry about real life, obligations. Either they're with their grandparents, their parents, or some sort of arranged, living agreement. And they just don't have real life obligations. And, it's bad. There's also the worst part of it.
What's that?
There's a lot of kids. The worst part is that there's a lot of kids that are young, in middle school, in high school, okay? And they're giving up their real life to be in VR and do stuff in this virtual world. And even in Second Life, I saw this happening. And what happens? It rolls around to the end of high school. They turn 18. Their parents are like, well, you've done nothing. You've accomplished nothing with your life. They're just like, get out. That's it. hit the street. I have a friend right now who that's happened to. He was just kicked out. He's like, have a good one. Parents were like, yep, we did our job, bye. I don't think it was his parents. I think it was like just a living arrangement at the time, some type of place he stayed till he was 18. But he kept putting it off.
Yeah.
And even one of our friends did the same thing.
Yeah.
And doesn't understand that, you know, and this happens to like kids all the time. They don't understand. They need to, you know, do something. And then they complain. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh no, my parents are angry with me. Oh no, I have to get off now. Yeah, I complain too. But looking back at everything, it's like, damn, I had some pretty good parents, man. Parents that knew what I needed, told me what to do when it was time to do it. If I didn't have them, I'd be dead. I promise you, I would be dead. I wouldn't be alive right now.